online right now, and sweet, we are here. Welcome to live stream number 13 of my dictation series. I do live writing sessions called Write With Me. I guess it's hashtag Write With Me. And what I do is I do sessions where I'm writing my novels. Right now in this session, I'm going to be working on chapter 1 of Moonlight at Wailea. I've got my poster up and I'm really enjoying the experience. This is where a woman completely alters her life. Her marriage ends in divorce, unfortunately, and she decides after everything's all settled to go somewhere completely different. She's going to go on a trip to Maui as an escape, but also to clear her head and, I would say, not rediscover herself, but escape the dusty ranch that she lived in Texas for so long. And this is the novel about it. Now, I've got most of the novel written, but I did the 3-2-1. I've got the structure, the ending, I've got the middle, and I need the first couple of opening chapters. And I decided to make it at Dallas-Fort Worth, DFW, one of the biggest airports in the country. And that's where the fun starts, where her and her cousin arrive. The cousin drops her off, and the main character is, let's see, make sure you get got everything right. Let me pull up Scrivener just in case. So one of the challenges of writing all these books is eventually you exactly figure out who the heck everyone is. Okay, Heather, perfect. So Heather's goal is to get on the airplane, and she has never flown by herself. She's flown with her now ex-husband, but she's never flown by herself. So that should be an interesting one. Oh, let's see. Poster looks great. Hi, Nancy. Thank you for stopping by. All right. Okay, get my iPad up here and let's get going. And I use my microphone to Sennheiser lavalier to do dictation into my iPad, using voice memos. And you can see I've been working on my other books here. Chapter 25 of Moonlight, chapter 25 of Golden Dusk. And I need to get chapter 1 knocked out so I can get this book out to you guys. The only way you're going to be able to get Moonlight at Wailea is if you sign up for my mail list. That's the kicker. And then you'll be able to get this free novel to where you can enjoy what the experience is like of going to Maui. I've been there several times, and it's always a fun time, but always a laugh, as you'll discover in the book. So, shall we get started? Make sure everything's okay. Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate it. The cover looks really good. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's get started. Get my notes up. It's funny. I got like two computers, another iPad. It's like I need to do a BT. Oh, here. Let me show you the BTS. Okay. So you can see my computer here, my iPad there. I've got my setup. It's a bit of a production to do this stuff. Let me get that up. Yeah, there you go. Now you got the BTS experience. Behind the scenes, that is. Okay, let's get it going. All right. Start recording. Okay. Chapter 1, The Decision. Moonlight at Wailea. Trisha put the Ford Ranger in park after she pulled up to the American Airlines departure area at Dallas-Fort Worth. Both women sat there in the cab, not saying a word for a few moments, as they stared out at the chaos that was the nature of Dallas-Fort Worth. After a few moments, Trish looked over and looked at Heather and said, "Well, I guess this is it, cuz you're going to be off in Hawaii glamming it up." Heather breathed in and breathed out for a moment and then turned her head and looked at Trish and said, "Oh man, I am so scared. I don't know if I should do this. I mean, I've got huge money in it, but..." And Trish leaned over and hugged her cousin as hard as she could and said, "Look, your life went to heck. I know this is super scary, but this was your decision, remember? You just talked me into midnight sessions of discussing where you could go, and what better place than Maui? Heather swallowed as her throat began to dry up. I've never flown before. I mean, is it going to be okay? At that point, Trish laughed. Oh, cuz, look, all these people running around, thousands of people a day, I don't even know, maybe millions go through this airport. Who knows? Look, you need to catch your flight. You got to get out. You can do it. They hopped out, and Trish walked around and unlatched the tailgate and dragged Heather's, let's see, what purple is that? Purple. Burgundy Travel Pro rollerboard out, and she said, wow, you're traveling light? I knew you were going light and I tossed it in, but I just never thought about it after this multi-hour drive. Heather told her, look, I want to buy stuff there. I want a completely different world. I am so done with ranch life. You and me both. You and me both. Heather reached out and they embraced one more time, holding each other as long as they could. And then Trish broke back and said, stepped back and said, okay, you get yourself going. The parking guy is starting to wave me on, like, get the heck out of here. They both rolled their eyes and looked at the man as he waved his flashlight at them, as though that was going to make her move along. Heather waved to her cousin as she hopped in her pickup and took off. And Heather stood at the door for a moment, staring at it wishing open and swishing closed. The steel and frame opening and closing to keep the heat and humidity out of Texas. And she thought, I can't believe how hot and humid it is here. I've never been to anywhere else, but I can't imagine it being any worse. As she walked through the door, there was a moment of silence in between the double doors, and then she came into the great hall where all the airlines were, and she was just overwhelmed at the space. It had been many years since she had traveled, and she always had her now ex-husband to take care of things who she dutifully followed. But now, after everything had gone completely wrong and she stood here by herself, she looked up, and then all of a sudden somebody brushed past her and said, oh, excuse me, ma'am. She turned around and realized she had stopped in the middle of the walkway, blocking the door. She collected herself, shook her head, and looked at the big sign showing directions to the different airlines. She used her finger in the air and slowly, oh, there it is. American Airlines. She turned on her heel and began walking up to the counter. After snaking her way through the line and half an hour, she started to think that the first class ticket may have been a better choice, but that made the difference between staying at the Grand Wailea or staying at a smaller hotel and not having the lavish experience she wanted. After she made it through the seemingly endless line, she walked up to the counter, completely nervous and shaking. The agent, dressed in American Airlines neck cravat with a red, white, and blue, looked up her and said, "Good morning, ma'am. Where are you headed?" "Maui." "Oh, wonderful. If you could please hand me your ID." Heather struggled with her Yves Saint Laurent clutch for a moment as she opened it and then set it on the counter, her hand shaking, pulling it out. At that moment, the gate agent looked at her sideways and said, "Is everything okay, ma'am?" And she said, "Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. I am crazy nervous," as she began using her right hand to rub her left ring finger, where there was a rub mark and a slight tan band and an empty spot where a gold ring used to be. The woman saw what she was doing and then said, "Oh, okay, I understand. We just get a little worried when somebody shows up super nervous." And Heather replied, "Oh, no, it's just I have never gone this far by myself. I have never done almost anything by myself." The woman looked at her, as she took her took Heather's driver's license and began punching it up and said, well, I've been to Maui a few times because of the airlines, and let me tell you, you're going to have a wonderful time, even if you're by yourself. Once Heather made eye contact with the check-in agent winked at her and glanced at her hand and nodded. And Heather asked her, you really can't say very much, can you? She said, the agent said, no, rules are rules, you know. She began punching things up and asking Heather the usual check-in questions, and then, will you be checking a bag? Heather looked down at her rollerboard and thought for a moment, and she said, you know what? Yes, I don't want to haul this thing around. The agent said, yeah, good choice. It's DFW is a pretty big place. Makes it easier to get through security. Would you like paper boarding passes? Heather looked down at her phone with the cracked screen and thought for a moment, you know what? You're right. I've seen a lot of people go through, but sometimes my phone glitches out. Agent replied after looking around and looking at her cracked phone, you wouldn't want that to happen. It gets kind of awkward at security. The woman handed Dana her single printed boarding pass on thermal paper, and Dana took it. Heather took it. Heather took it and walked away, and the woman said, have a nice flight. Heather turned around and waved and then began working her way towards TSA. As she looked at the unimaginably long line, she was happy that Tricia told her that she needed to arrive very early. She started seeing all the people pile in. She walked up to where the lanes were, and she said, TSA pre-check. And the line agent asked her, do you mind if I see your boarding pass? Yes, please. The agent looked at it and said, oh yeah, this is your line, regular. So no clear or TSA pre-check, what are those? And the man explained, well, if you pay for clear, then you can totally use it, but that's a fee you're going to have to pay. And TSA pre-check, you had to do that earlier. You do have a real ID, don't you? Heather began sweating and then remembered, oh yeah, I do have this star on my driver's license, she said. Perfect, otherwise you'd be going back and paying a $45, shall we say, fee for not having that. Heather thought back for a moment as things began to unravel in her life. Tricia said, you really need to get this, and now she was very appreciative. After standing in the long line and her working her way through a half-hour line to get through security, shuffling along, she was happy to be clear of the security area, and she was happy that she only had her clutch and her jacket with her. She wasn't exactly sure why she brought a jacket. I mean, it was Maui after all, but she wanted something to bundle up on the plane. As she began walking through the cavernous space, hearing agents call out, make sure to take off your belts and put your phones and everything into a case. She left that sound of yelling behind and entered a space where she saw families and people wandering around. The massive tiled floor of DFW was a complete cavern to her. It felt almost like the outside being so large, but the thing is, she noticed there wasn't the smell of dust or cattle in the air, but rather antiseptic smells and a smell of a couple, and then she paused. What is that? She turned and saw a family walking by, and she smelled the scent of bubblegum and Cheez-Its floating on the air. And she looked at the family, and sure enough, the little girl had a bag of Cheez-Its, and the boy she saw was chomping wholeheartedly at gum while the parents were trying to herd them as they were moving along. She looked at her boarding pass and saw that it said Gate 37 and looked up at the different signs and was bewildered at the electronic displays of the flights going all over the planet. She saw London, Paris, Tokyo, Cairo. The list was endless, and each time she saw a place, she had in a vision of Big Ben or the Eiffel Tower, or she paused, the pyramids? Cairo? Really? Wow, I had no idea, she said to herself. As she began wandering along in the stretch of people, she was thankful for the open space. She thought about as cattle had moved along her ranch, they funneled them into a small space to control them. But she looked at the number of people and just imagined what it would be like if all of those people were funneled in a cattle chute. She shivered as she looked down at her blouse and gray travel pants, thinking, I really should have worn shorts, but I wasn't exactly sure what was on the plane, and Trish warned me, you don't want to be wearing shorts on a plane. She thought about Trish's warning, you don't want to be wearing shorts on a plane when some sweaty fat guy sat on that plane for 5 hours, and now you're rubbing your skin against his sweat. She almost gagged at the thought, thinking, oh my gosh, that is so disgusting. She reached down and rubbed the fabric of her nylon pants and was appreciative of Trish's careful thought about things she never thought about. Let's see, where are we here? Good, 12. Once she reached the gate area, she looked at the massive seating. People sat side by side, and she thought about what it was like with Joshua the last time they were here. He had shown her what to do, where to go, and she just simply followed him and sat in these seats. Now she had to choose her seat, and she said under her breath, God, it's just like high school all over again. Looking around farther away from her gate, she saw seats that were unoccupied and open. She made a beeline for them and walked over. As she sat down, she began handling her clutch and then tilted up and looked down at the gold metal letters, YSL, period. I can't believe I actually bought this. I don't know what the hell I was doing. What am I doing here? And she began ruminating and thinking about it as different families were walking around, and a few businessmen and businesswomen in their business attire began chatting and cracking open their laptops. She sat there and crossed her arms over her white blouse and pressed up her chest and thought about what it was going to be like. She saw that boarding was beginning in 5 minutes, and all of a sudden it hit her. Oh crap. She stood up and began making her way towards the restroom. I don't want to be on a 7-hour flight and have to go pee when we're first taking off. Trish said they don't let you get out of the seat for a half hour. I totally forgot about that. She went into the restroom, took care of herself, and then in a few moments when she was back out, the gate agent had already announced first class boarding. Trish looked down, Heather looked down at her ticket and thought about that first class ticket she almost bought. She literally came so close to hit buying, but then she realized she would be in a much less lavish location. So she put herself in American Airlines mid-grade. She felt good at that. It made her happy to see that she wasn't at the very back of the aircraft. She'd lost herself in thought for several moments, and then she heard, boarding group 5, boarding group 5. Immediately she saw a horde of people stand up, and she hustled her way over to the line. Making it through, holding with her phone in her pocket and holding her clutch, she handed the gate agent her paper boarding pass and tapped it in. There was a beep, and the man said, thank you very much, Mrs. Thank you very much for boarding, ma'am. Heather Sudo. Heather hadn't changed her last name yet. She hadn't even broached that. Even though her divorce was final, there was a lot of things left to do. As she began walking down the jetway, the heat pressed in against her as she thought, is this really what I want to do? And then she shook her head and said, hell yeah, woman, listen to Trish, get on that plane. Boom. Perfect. There we go. 16 minutes and 41 seconds. Let's see how the word count was. All right. One moment. Open projects. Moonlight at Wailea. Okay. What I'm going to do is copy chapter 1, the text from, let's see, text from my iPad over to my computer. I'm going to see what the word count was. Copy. Alrighty, and then pasting. And I love iOS's new ability to copy from my phone or iPad to the computer or vice versa. Super handy. 2,400 words, baby. Yes! Alrighty. That'll be the intro of Moonlight at Wailea with this poster with this woman's gone through a divorce and she's rediscovering herself in Maui. Lots of adventures to come and a good slash of romance. Let's see, guessing 1,600? No. Yeah, Melissa guessed 1,600 when in fact Scrivener literally says 2,435 words. 2,435 words. In fact, here, I will prove it right now. Why not? Let me show you right here. Put it down. Hopefully you can see it. I can't see the screen. There you go. 2,435 words. Ba-dang-dang. Can't complain about that. So, okay, well, thank you very much for watching. This has been another book in the Maui Desire Series. It will be available on my website soon, aaronbelsing.com. And also check links below in the description where I've got my regular pen name, Aaron R. Linsdau, where I write thriller fiction like Black Ice and Last Echo. You can see those behind me. Those are available right now at aaronrlinsdau.com. You can order them on Amazon or get them through my Shopify store and support me directly. Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for my next dictation live stream of whatever chapter I might be working on. Thank you very much for your support. Please like, comment, and subscribe.